Good morning, everyone. We made it to Friday. Thank goodness. What do you guys have on the agenda for this weekend? Something fun. Okay, I don't need to ask Sean.
Sean, is there a football game?
We all know.
Is there a game this weekend?
No, there is the game this weekend.
Dan,
so what are
you going to do?
What is your tailgate situation like? Like how does that?
Great question. It's very strategic. It's like going to Disney where you have to figure out what ride you go when, depending on the line. Because people will call you. I mean, it's like a little bit of it's like going to a convention, Dan.
Yeah.
Like you try to map out what do you have tickets for? What could you get extras for to trade to get into somebody else's? There's several very cool tailgates that happen. Members of Congress, alumni, classes, organizations, like veterans organizations. So I've asked ChatGPT to put together a schedule for me.
I look forward to that as much as the game.
All the events in there, and it tells you where to go when. ChatGPT.
Yeah, but I have no idea where. Someone will send you we're at tailgate section. I have no clue. It's in Baltimore, at the Ravens Stadium, so I'm not as familiar with that. But you know what? I'll figure it out. But the thing that's so interesting is that literally the game's at 3:00, we're leaving at 9:00.
Wow. You're going to be exhausted by the end of the day.
Oh, man. No excuse. Play like a champion, right?
It truly is like going to a convention. You're trying to hit everything. People are like, I'll be here, swing by. And
I love it.
Dan, what do you got on your agenda?
I think I may have strep throat. So I'm going to the doctor after this, and I'm hoping to feel better.
You sound good. I can't tell. Your energy is
that's good. I didn't sleep last night because it hurt to swallow. But other than that, again, just show up.
Big part. Well, that's
talking about playing like a champion,
right? Yeah, that's right. You got to be here.
But this is like one of those weekends. Ironically, outside of the game, there's some stuff tonight.
Yeah.
But Saturday night, I don't have it wasn't a big party weekend. Rachel, I mean, are you hitting the circuit?
I will say, if I'm okay, the New York Philharmonic is doing something tomorrow night, doing Christmas or holiday music, which I love. So we are planning to go to that, my wife and me. Very exciting. It's just like a football game, Sean.
Rachel, what's on the agenda for the fam?
I am going to do a whole lot of nothing. I think I'm just going to cook, maybe make a lasagna. Between the newsletter and, jumping into the daily, show. You guys have been doing this forever. New for me. So I am going to take a beat, make a lasagna, watch Frozen with my 3-year-old.
Right, what's in the lasagna? Is it vegetables? What is the Bade lasagna?
I use ground beef. My mother has an amazing recipe. Anytime I have people over to my house, it's what I make. It's my standard go-to entertaining dish. Everybody asks me for the recipe, and I do give it out. It's not one of those family secrets where if I tell you, I'll have to kill you. So maybe someday, guys, Dan, when you're in town, come over. We'll have lasagna. It'll be great.
Okay, I like that.
And I'm not Italian, so don't judge
nobody's
me.
Perfect.
Not that good, but I think it's fantastic. Okay, 2 housekeeping notes before we get to the daybook here. Number one, I've been saying this at the end of the show, and I've been meaning to say at the top of the show. Our YouTube page is up. The DC Huddle on YouTube. So please go and subscribe right now. We're trying to sort of build our audience there. Obviously, we've been watching on Sean's YouTube channel and obviously on Twitter too, and you can continue to do that. But our YouTube page is there, so please go subscribe. That's the first thing. Number 2, sign up. We want you guys to sign up for our Substack. You're going to get alerts about the agenda and what we're going to be talking about in the morning, and then eventually could potentially join the show if you sign up at thedchuddle.com. This is for the email.
And we'll have a post show newsletter and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Right. As we build.
Rachel's lasagna recipe might be one of the first things to come out.
There you go. There you go. And today we are going to be doing questions at the end. So stay put and
write them in the YouTube chat.
Write them in the YouTube chat. Katie, our amazing producer behind the scenes, she's going to be grabbing them and pulling them in. So let us know what's on your mind. Daybook, start there. It's obviously Friday, not a ton going on. Hakeem Jeffries is doing an 11 a.m. press conference. Expect to hear a lot about Obamacare subsidies expiring and Republicans owning that. At 1:30, President Trump is going to be participating in the swearing-in ceremony for Ben Black to be the CEO of the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, and John, am I saying his last name is Jovanovic, I believe, to be Exim Bank, to head the Exim Bank. At 3 p.m., Trump will participate in a bill signing ceremony at the Oval Office. And of course, if reporters are brought in today, they're going to be asking him a lot about redistricting. That's like the big story right now, the fallout from news last night that Indiana Republicans rejected the president's push there.
A Indiana Republican.
What?
A Indiana Republican?
Yeah, I mean, it was a 31-19 vote. So,
against.
Right. No. That was
more than A.
No.
There was a whole lot of Republicans.
I was gonna say there's a lot more than one, Sean, which we're gonna get to in a second. So we're gonna start there, guys. We'll talk about Trump's Hoosier rejection. We'll talk about the DOJ versus Letitia James. Once again, pot politics, as Luda would say, sticky icky politics.
Happy Friday.
House Democrats, looming headaches. We've talked a lot about Republicans' chaos on the Hill. There's some infighting obviously going on.
We got our own. Yep.
Lots of that. And Dan has a lot of smart thoughts on that. We'll talk about progressive primary momentum right now. And then we'll end on Newsom versus Vance with some headlines that are not, above the fold and not what people are talking about so much, but are happening sort of behind the scenes there. So let's start with Indiana, which went for Trump by something like 20 points, Sean, if I'm mistaken. A lot. Okay. Red state.
More than Harris.
Rejecting Trump's push to redraw the congressional maps, which would have given them 2 additional seats in their fight to save their majorities. Sean, we can't sugarcoat this. This is a big defeat for the president. So just start there.
I will say this in context. Look, we've been talking about this a long time. That they weren't voting for him, right? These are people largely who believe, this isn't an anti-Trump vote. It was a vote on that they didn't believe that principally this was the right thing to do, and they've been very clear on that forever. And then there's been they flew in a bunch of senators 5 months ago to the Oval Office to meet with the vice president and my point is, this is not like some new, like everybody went gasped yesterday. Like the shocker would have been if they had gotten it, right?
You wouldn't know that from looking at the Twitter accounts of a lot of Trump's, closest political sort of allies. You look at Chris LaCivita's Twitter account; it was the end of the world.
Oh no! Just so I'm clear, I just want to be clear.
Yep.
Expectation wise, if this was a race, we were expected to lose the race, right? That for the last 6 months, the reason that the president and Johnson, et cetera, were working the phones is because they had made it very clear they weren't going to support this effort, right? Indiana House Republicans were well on board. The Senate was going to be a problem all along. I just want to make sure we understand it. It wasn't like everyone woke up this morning and, oh my gosh, I can't believe they all bailed on you. They haven't been with him since the jump. And they're not anti-Trump. They just don't believe that you should do mid-year redistricting. And so I want to make sure we do it in context of that. That being said, the president, as you point out correctly, won the state very well. He carried the House of their House of Representatives. That vote was huge. It's these sort of recalcitrant Senate Republicans that philosophically didn't believe in what was happening.
They also said they didn't like the way this all went down.
That's what I mean.
They felt they were being bullied. They were being bullied, and they said no. I want to come back to what this means for the president's power, and whether it's waning, because I definitely want to get your take on that, Sean. But there is going to be hell to pay for this. I mean, just watching Twitter last night, you had a lot of the big, MAGA leaders going after some of the operatives who are behind the scenes. I talked to 2 people in the president's orbit over the past 15 hours or so, who said we are going to primary all these Republicans who voted against.
Well, I'll tell you
a leadership challenge to
president.
Exactly. My question though is, if they're focused on that and coming after these Republicans for revenge, for standing in the way of what the president wants to do, that takes their focus off other things nationwide and the real foe, which would be the Democrats, right? I just wonder, do you think they should just move on? Like, what do you think about making a point?
There's a mixed bag on this, right? When the president first got into office, the former chair of the Ohio Republican Party had been a big Kasich person and had gone very openly against President Trump.
This was in 16.
This is in 16. Yeah. The president picked up the phones and worked them to help elect Jane Timken as the new chair of the Ohio Republican Party. And he won. The reason I say that is that like he understands you can't just threaten, you have to follow through.
Yeah.
And part of what, where I'm conflicted is the pragmatic side of me says, okay, move on to your point, eye on the prize, midterm, keep the focus. But number one, they can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's not like there's one person running this political operation. They've got the whole backbone of the RNC. They've got a massive super PAC, outside folks. I mean, so like, let's just be clear. There's a lot of people in his political orbit with a lot of resources that can do multiple things. But then the political side to me comes down and says, if you don't follow up, if these folks don't think that there's if it's a toothless tiger, then people won't vote for you. And so the president, I think, and his team, by showing Indiana Republicans, okay, you don't want to take one for the team, play ball, that's fine. But then we'll find people who will. And I think that, that if they just walked away, to me, that would then signal to everyone else down the road for the next 3 years, oh, don't worry about it. There are no consequences.
There's been suggestion that perhaps the Trump administration could reduce funding or cut off funding for Indiana in some fashion. Do you think he should go that far?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't, just to be clear, because I think you can't make the citizens of the state pay for the obstruction of a few political figures.
But I think that this is part of the problem that he's in now, which is when you invest that much time and energy and publicly do it. I mean, the number of times that JD Vance met with them, the fact that they did threaten to cut funding off, which multiple leaders confirmed last night. Oh, they threatened to cut our funding off. You threatened to primary people. Turning Point USA was bragging about how they were on the ground, putting millions of dollars into it, whether that's true or not. But you make such a spectacle and show of force. And to your point, Sean, Trump is powerful because he's feared within the Republican Party. The record, I think, other than Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, the record of taking Trump on and winning a primary in the last 10 years is small. But if you step back and look at since August, the Epstein files, people who've gone public about his efforts in Ukraine, we talked about Congress on Venezuela, the House and Senate chairman, Republicans, immediately after that boat strike saying, we want answers. People questioning the lack of economic focus. Like, I agree with you, Sean. Their problem is more and more people are going public in defying them. And so for Trump, like, how do you now get that mojo back where you are feared? Because
that goes to Rachel's question, though. And that's the answer, is that people need to realize if I go against you, there'll be consequences. And frankly, like, for those guys to take out a few of these folks in the end, Senate primary wise, or go after from leadership, that's how you have to make sure there's a follow through. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Sean, do you think the president's clutches on the party are slackening?
I do not think it is waning. As I said, if the folks from the jump in the Indiana Senate always had this institutional philosophical objection to this. And the question was, how many could you get to your side? And they just, I think, sort of stuck it out. But that's why I look at this very differently than a political situation where you lost ground. Like, if they were with you and there was an attrition, I would be like, okay. But this case, they were trying to pull them over the finish line from the jump. I'm not that concerned about it. And again, for the reasons that I stated, if they were like, we're not voting because we're against the president, then that would be a problem. They had institutional reasons for not doing this. I think they were misguided. This to me is like the filibuster. All these guys who think somehow Democrats won't do this if they get a chance are nuts. And I think there is a philosophical argument, which is, as a state shifts, becoming more conservative, then the state should reflect that.
You mentioned Democrats. Dan, I want to come to you on something I heard last night from someone in Trump world, a campaign operative, said to me, well, I asked him, I said, was it all worth it? You guys are what, up +2 or 3 when you look at, the redistricting battles all across the country. Was this, again, we talked about this before, Sean, is the lemon worth the squeeze, or whatever that saying is, right? He said to me that Democrats would have done this anyway, and that is a justification for doing it, which I don't think I had really heard that one before. Yeah. Dan, would Democrats have done this same thing if Republicans hadn't started it first. Is that correct?
No, I mean it's absurd. It's the best argument they have.
What do you
Sean,
mean? They did in New York last cycle.
Sean, nobody in 2025 was talking about redistricting.
Right. But in 2023 they were.
But the question was, would we have done this in 2025?
Oh, okay.
No, we were a broken party. There was no money coming in. We had no leadership. This push got people off the mat. Think about who we're going to talk about later. Gavin Newsom is where he is today because he joined the redistricting fight. He stood up, and it was the first person to say, we're going back at you. And no guts, no glory. He was successful. So absolutely not. The party would not have done this because we thought we're 4 seats away, like we're going to do it. But kudos to the party. They met fire with fire.
Look, I'll just advise or revise and extend my comments. You were right. In a vacuum, this cycle was lit by Republicans. But I think Republicans got the idea from last cycle, which was, hey, we watched New York try to do this. Why don't we do it? I think that being said, getting back to Rachel's question, was the juice worth the squeeze? I think the jury is out, right? Because you've got Florida. If Florida ends up picking 3 to 5 seats up, so right now, the general sort of our thinking is conventional wisdom is at about 3 seats on the Republican side plus up now. I think that might even be generous because I think the Cuellar seat, you take that off the map a little. California, anyway, I think that would be the high watermark where we are now. But you've got a couple more states when the Voting Rights Act is struck down, and the Louisiana case in front of the Supreme Court is resolved, and this all comes out. Then I think we should revisit this, and the answer will be yes.
And that's the question: is how many of those states can fix their maps in time for November? That's going to be the sprint.
I think, I don't know if I was reading this in Playbook or where this morning, but folks were saying that the Voting Rights Act, if that's struck down, we're talking about a difference of something like 19 seats.
Yeah, correct.
For Republicans. That's huge.
South Carolina, Louisiana. So all those states currently under the Voting Rights Act will just go like that.
Yeah. Well, and the question is each state about the process to redo your map. Can you do it in time before voting starts in September, October in a lot of these states? Like that's is it a 2028 play? But yeah, as a Democrat, that is what has to make us very nervous.
Okay, let's move on to Letitia James in the Justice Department. So this is obviously strike 2 for Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. A grand jury once again throwing out this effort to re-indict Letitia James for this mortgage fraud case. Sean, this feels tricky to me because, on the one hand, the president wants to fire up his base and, coming after these people who came after him, people love it. The MAGA base loves it, right? But on the other hand, this could repel some swing voters, right? It changes the focus. I got to believe focus from where, where perhaps he wants it.
So this goes back more to, in my opinion, to what you asked off the bat about, political focus is, and this is more like DOJ focus, which I still think it's not like it's that big of a deal for the Eastern District of Virginia to do this. But the question is, at some point, this is a combination of things, right? So Letitia James, she did all that she did in New York against Donald Trump. She ran on the idea of using the law and weaponizing it to go after a political opponent. So I think this goes back to this idea of, okay, then, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So I get that. But at some point, the question is, I think the bigger issue for them is to make sure they've got, if you look at what gets struck down, the court is getting through some very technical processes about who had the right to bring some of these charges, Her, as a non-lawyer, you look at the prima facie documents and go, okay, you said this in the document, you got this benefit, and that wasn't true. I think there's a violation there. And so the question is the administration following the legal semantics in the way that they should? I think that's the bigger issue.
And you think they should keep going after these people?
Why not? They broke the law. And I think, again,
the reason I ask is because, we talked about this on the text chain a little bit this morning, but I think about when the Democrats started investigating and impeaching, President Trump, and it was such a big thing. And yeah, it fired up the base for a while. But I just remember swing voters being like, this is so stupid. Like,
but that was much you going after a former president. Everybody read about that. Cameras cut.
No, I mean when he was still president, but regardless.
Well, but I mean, I think that's the problem, which is, Sean, you say she broke the law and, Comey and others. But the problem is grand juries keep saying, no, we don't see anything there, like at all. Now, I hear you. Some of this is can Lindsay Halligan like technically bring this, etc. I'm with you, Rachel, and I've said this. I think the problem is swing voters are disgusted. We just talked about Indiana, right? We talked about kind of, is he losing a little bit of mojo? We talked about the Epstein files and, the party starting to question him. I think it's a trap. The base demands it. But voters hate this stuff.
Okay, but here's my question for you, Dan. Whether it's a good idea or bad, or whether they're following the processes, leave that aside for just 1 second, because that's my issue, right? Yep. To your issue, do you think if you walk down the street today in anywhere, like in Norfolk, where it's going down, you pick your city, if you walked by 200 people, would any of them know it's happening? Because I don't think that outside of people like us and people who are diehards, to Rachel's point, like the bag of base and whatever, nobody even knows this is happening.
I disagree with that in that if you watch cable and you are like, depending on where you consume your news, it's talked about. It's talked about.
So, again, let's pull that thread for 1 second. So you're right. Depends what you watch. So you might see this on MSNBC, right? Because it's
or Fox. Because
right. Good point. That's exactly where I was going. But let's play this out for a second, politically to the point here. If you're watching it on MSNBC, I'm sorry, if you're watching MSNBC or whatever we're calling it now, then where you are never ever voting for Donald Trump or any Republican. If you're watching Fox, the odds are pretty good you're not voting Democrat. Therefore, this gets back to my point, which is, I don't think for the people who are paying attention to this that they care, because they're already on team 1 or team 2.
Interesting. Let's move on to pot politics, because we want to take some questions here at the end of the show at some point. Washington Post is reporting that Trump is going
to... So we want to get people high?
No, I just don't want to end the show at 9:30, because then we only get a couple questions. So Trump is going to cut restrictions on marijuana. The president is expected to direct agencies to reclassify pot as a Schedule III drug, similar to some common painkillers. When I read this, my first thought was, I come from a pretty conservative Catholic family. There are a lot of Trump voters. They don't like this. Sean, what is the president doing here? What is the play and the angle?
So Cynical Sean, that's my nickname. I always think everything comes back to power and money. And so there's a lot of people who instinctively think that this is a good play with young voters. And by the way, the bottom line, all this, the reclassification really all goes to the financial piece of this, because right now distilleries and everything, they have to, Dan knows this probably way better than I do, but like there's a banking piece to this. Like all these cannabis and pot places can't bank legitimately keep money in cash.
Cards, everything. It's an all cash business.
Yeah, so this is an all cash business. But my point in saying this is reclassifying it allows them to basically, what it really does is get back into the financial system, which gets to my point. This is a big business with a lot of money, and I got to believe that that's what this really comes down to. The president's not running for re-election. Everything you know about President Trump, right? He talks about no drinking, no drugs. I do not. I think you're right, Rachel. There's a lot of people who are not happy, who will not be happy about this. I'm one of them. I'm not a fan of, like, I think you walk through the downtown DC or any city right now, it smells like pot and pee. The last thing we need is to make it more of, I think considering where we are as a society, the last thing we do is to make drugs more available. I don't think this is a good idea, but I will tell you, I think where people are missing the story is there's follow the money.
Dan, Democrats like this.
Yeah, I actually think it's smart politics, and hat tip to our former colleague Mark Halperin, who flagged this 5-6 months ago that the White House was looking at it. I think I always go back to when I was chief of staff for Jared Polis from Colorado. Colorado was one of the first states to have medical marijuana, and I was stunned at how many people the data showed came from Texas, Kansas, Montana, Idaho to buy marijuana. So ruby red areas, conservative areas. it has become more and more accepted and used. I don't use marijuana just personally, just not my thing. Don't have a problem with people who do. But I think the writing is on the wall. And I think Trump is smart politically. When you think about RFK voters, you think about young voters, marijuana is almost more common than alcohol with a lot of people. And I think he will actually benefit. The issue is it's his own party that has some of the biggest concerns about this. So
but perhaps they were going to vote for him or vote red anyway. So
yeah, and that's, I think, their calculation. Yeah, I think that's it.
Let's talk about some Dem infighting.
Yay!
Yay! Sean's like, thank God, please. So yeah, we've talked a lot about Speaker Johnson and chaos with the Republican side.
Yeah.
A couple of stories we want to hit this morning, both impeachment push giving Democrats headache in the House, but also, and I want to start with this, the resurgence of abolish ICE. This is huge. MSNBC is reporting that abolish ICE is creeping back into Democratic messaging. Once this was a fad, I remember back when I was covering the House in 2020, this became like a very big thing. Then it was considered toxic after 2022. I remember getting the audio of a House Democrat private phone call where Abigail Spanberger went off and said, this is a terrible idea. It's hurting.
That's Governor Spanberger to you now, Governor Spanberger.
There you go. Governor Spanberger, former House member.
Never been so excited that we have term limits in Virginia than that.
But now it's coming back, of course, because there have been a lot of frustrations with what the president is doing with deportations. Clearly progressives feeling their power and like they can push the limit on this. Dan, like, this is political malpractice, right?
I mean, yeah, look, they both go together. And I think it is something that is worth kind of people need to keep a monitor on this, because what was a fringe issue, as you say, in 2020, it wasn't just defund ICE, right? It was defund the police. Like you had both of these things going on. I think it was the famous debate in 2019 where you had like almost every Democratic presidential candidate raise their hand about kind of like cutting ICE funding. Immigration is still a sore point for the party in that the party is kind of afraid to talk about it. And so in the absence of an agenda and in absence of what we would do on immigration, these voices about just cut funding, cut it off. Right, Tom Homan can't surge troops into Chicago or ICE agents if they don't have any money. And I think this is where the lack of leadership in our party is becoming a killer, because Jeffries cannot corral this like, you know, constellation of super progressives who are out there saying, hell yes, cut the money off, and at the same time are talking about impeachment. I mean, for those who don't know, yesterday, Al Green, who remember at Trump's wasn't State of the Union, what was it? His first joint address, Al Green was the guy who got up and started interrupting the president 5-10 minutes in. I mean, it was horrifying. His bill to impeach, last time you had 128 House Democrats vote against the bill. So more than half of the caucus said no. This time, only 23 voted against it. And 47 voted present, which is the ultimate weenie, you know, thing. The problem is they're all afraid. I mean, that included
that's the leadership you're talking about.
That is Hakeem Jeffries. That is Kathleen Clark. That is the problem. Is our leadership is so afraid of the base. They're so reliant on the base to become speaker and, you know, majority leader, etc., that you have a little bit of the the tail wagging the dog right now. And if the party does not stop this, it's the old Joe Biden, compare me to the alternative, not the almighty. Republicans may be in trouble, but if that's what voters think we're going back to, we are in trouble, big time.
And Axios had this story about the impeachment push and all these Democrats, just pardon my language, bitching behind the scenes.
But that's it. It's behind it.
Even though they're voting for it, right? About how this is terrible. It puts us in between a rock and a hard place, in a bad position. Like, this is bad for the party. And that, as you say, Dan, they're not articulating that publicly. But Sean, it's actually on the abolish ICE thing, it's actually kind of worse than just that. In this MSNBC story, or NBC Now, I should say, story, they quote a couple of Democrats talking about not just, abolish ICE and cutting off funding, but actually going after ICE agents. Let's see, it was Graham Planter in Maine, in fact, talking about putting ICE agents on trial. This just seems like
Insane.
I mean, I'm sure the NRCC is just loving this because they can use this in campaign ads and to go after Democratic candidates.
Well, I'll tell you, after the thing that blows my mind as a society is we are 2 weeks after 2 National Guardsmen were attacked, one killed, one fighting for it, still apparently doing much better, thank God. But like the idea that you're now resorting back to language about going after ICE agents, God forbid something happens to one of these folks. This is going to be, to Dan's point, Democrats will own this, and Republicans will make it very clear who's to blame. And so the rhetoric that they talked about taking back down again, they're right back to where they were. I actually, this is exactly the problem that we talked about post assassination of Charlie Kirk, post, some of these previous issues with defund the police. So I got to tell you, I think this is a really stupid move for Democrats, and Dan's right. At some point, they're going to help make us look really good.
And that's where I think, look, too, if you're like Gavin Newsom and you're there is a leadership moment here to step up and corral these voices. Because if not, like you talked about Graham Planter, what is Roy Cooper in North Carolina and Sherrod Brown in Ohio going to say to this?
Yeah,
they are going to be asked, do you support cutting off funding? Do you support prosecuting ICE agents? It's insanity. Tom Perillo running in Virginia now, going back for a seat in the Charlottesville area. Is that your message that you want? You want to be talking about affordability. You want to be talking about health care. This stuff is a gift to Donald Trump if we don't stop it.
That leads us to our next topic, which is sort of progressive primary momentum.
Yeah.
They've got some swag right now, even as you're, encouraging Democratic leaders to sort of push back on some of these ideas. Down in North Carolina, this is the most recent headline. Another House Democrat faces a Sanders-backed primary. This is Democrat, I think Nida Alam is going to be challenging North Carolina Democrat Valerie Foushee, who's a member of the Black Caucus, has the backing of David Hogg, Sanders, and the Justice Democrats.
Yep.
And this is obviously the second one this week. I think there was another one with Dan Goldman in New York City, who's going to be getting a Sanders-backed primary as well. Well, look, on the North Carolina one, Dan, my first question was again, about Hakeem Jeffries and whether he would step in here. Member of the CBC himself. This is one of his rank and file members. I mean, will he step in, or can he step in? What could he actually do in a situation like this? Well,
and there's more to it for Hakeem, because where does his power base start? The Congressional Black Caucus, right? Perhaps the most powerful force in a Democratic leadership primary. One of the things about the Congressional Black Caucus is what I would call the old bulls, the older Black members who are very adamant about protecting seniority and protecting themselves from these up-and-comer primary challenges. But at the same time, the Progressive Caucus and the younger voters and the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders, although AOC has not publicly supported this stuff, but I think she's not exactly opposing it either, is chomping at the bit. And he, as is often the case, is paralyzed. He is neither defending the incumbents nor supporting these challengers. So of course he's offending everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it is a huge thing. We've talked about this all year, that these primary challenges are going to happen. I actually think it's good for the party to have this, put up or shut up. Either show your constituents you can do it, you have the energy, the passion, you can raise the money, or you're too old and you probably need to move on. But in addition to all these primary challenges in the House, you have, for those who didn't see, Graham Planter in Maine, poll came out this week. He's only down 10 points. I mean, I don't think you can have a worse couple months. Every time you're compared to a Nazi, it's not good, or praising Nazis or Nazi symbols in your body. He's still hanging around the rim. He is still within striking distance. In Michigan, we mentioned yesterday, Haley Stevens, kind of this impeachment drive. Now she's a moderate, very moderate Democrat who introduced impeachment in the House of RFK. So now you're going after the Maha movement. And in Minnesota, Annie Craig, who's running for the Senate there, is now getting hammered over voting for the Lake and Riley Act. This goes to the immigration issue that's still kicking around the party. The progressive wing is hammering her that when she had a chance to stand up to Trump, she didn't do it. So all across the board, you have Schumer and Jeffries sitting there watching this and the progressives have the momentum in all these races.
Talk about how much of a change this is, at least on the Senate side, from where Schumer was when he was this sort of up and comer 15, 20 years ago, Dan. We talked about this after the show yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big change at the DSCC in particular, where, there was this story in Politico yesterday about how they're getting hammered all over the place, for, not stepping more into primaries or stepping in too much. But it used to be that they sort of ran the tables, and they just don't anymore.
They didn't. I mean, I think some people have heard this story before, but Chuck Schumer in 2006, Harry Reid, the Senate minority leader or majority leader, no, he was minority at the time, put Schumer in charge of the DSCC. And there were two races where Schumer really made his name. One was Pennsylvania. Bob Casey was in a primary to take on Arlen Specter. And Bob Casey was pro-life. And there was a NARAL pro-abortion candidate in Philadelphia, and Schumer went all in on Casey. Casey's dad had been the governor, a very popular family up from the Scranton area. And Schumer organized the outside groups, organized labor, and got Casey through, then got the abortion people on board, and obviously Casey won. The other one was Jim Webb down in Virginia, who was from down in the southwest part of the state, had working class bona fides, Iraq veteran, really adamant, kind of out there on the war, against the Iraq war. And there was a very progressive candidate from Northern Virginia. And Schumer, again, went all in on Webb. Webb wins, and Webb goes on to run the table. Now, Schumer's impotent. He cannot finesse this anymore. He can't control the outside interest groups. He can't even control his own caucus. And there's just this irony that 20 years later, he has become the leader and yet lost control of his party.
Yeah. It's that, I mean, as I said yesterday, and all joking, not all joking aside, that like right now the mood has shifted. Back in the day, I remember everybody used to clamor for I've got the support of the party, I've got this, and now that's actually an albatross around your neck. If people run against people who are backed by the guy that got endorsed by the leadership in Washington. So both parties are going through this. And that's why, I've said this before, but it used to be that you were trying to clamor for it. Now you literally will run an ad saying party leaders endorsed my opponent, and none of these guys have the swag or the stick to get somebody out.
They also don't need it anymore. It seems like, I mean, the campaign committees used to sort of hold the purse strings. And now with social media and technology, you can be a candidate anywhere, not have connections, and just reach people, reach the grassroots, raise your profile, and raise a lot of money, right? So
yeah, well, I mean, it's even more than that, which is, and Sean, you've made this point, it's almost a badge of honor to not be endorsed now by the leadership and by Washington, D.C., to be the outsider, the grassroots person. It's just a giant change. And it goes to the impeachment and ICE issue, which is just, we are, for all of our recent success, some of it is Trump's failure, but we are a leaderless party right now. I mean, there's no one that controls the Democratic Party at all right now.
There is an exception, of course, and that is the president, because people.
No, I'm talking about Democrats.
On the other side. I mean, on the other side, yeah. I do feel like Republicans in Washington have, they still have more of a clutch on things. I don't mean that sounded in a bad way. Yeah. I just feel like have.
I mean, that's the thing. Right now, I'll tell you, if you could literally have never visited a state before, and if Donald Trump were to endorse you in a primary for anything, you'll be the nominee. I mean, it's almost like that is the one game changer that exists in politics today. His word to the base means everything.
And people will jump through major hurdles to get to that, get that endorsement, and fight each other for it, of course. Okay, 2028 footsteps. Let's do this quickly. Newsom got this sort of rock star greeting at the DNC this week, which, Dan, as you pointed out, shows sort of, his place with the party right now. And meanwhile, there's a story that Vance is headed to Allentown, Pennsylvania on Tuesday, and we can talk a little bit about his messaging on affordability and how that's slightly different. We've hit on this a little bit before, but Dan, just start there with Newsom. And I mean, this question has been asked before. Yes, he is sort of head and shoulders above everyone else when it comes to 2028 and a potential primary, but it's early. It's very early right now.
Yeah, and I mean, look, one of the things that story says, and I've said this myself now for months, which is I would not confuse his front runner status with like he is a safe front runner, meaning people love that he trolls Trump. It's worked for him, but even in that story, and there are a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to vote for him, but I love what he's doing. I think the two things to watch with Newsom now is one, do others start emulating his trolling, right? Since imitations is the most sincere form of flattery, it's clearly worked. The other thing is, does he start making moves to try to determine that calendar for 2028? Because right now, what states are going to go first is an unknown. I don't think Kamala Harris has the juice to try to set this table. But I am really curious if Gavin Newsom, one of the states to keep an eye on is Nevada. It's in his time zone. It's got a big Latino presence, to state the obvious. It would be in Newsom's backyard to kind of keep flying down there. Which state goes first? I think the other one for him would be New Hampshire is probably the most favorable. But keep an eye on, I think Gavin Newsom is starting to make moves behind the scenes to set the 28 calendar.
Sean, do you know how much the White House political operation is intending to sort of lean on Vance with this message he is sort of delivering on affordability? I mean, we talked about this earlier, with his personal story and having to grow up in poverty himself, experiencing it. And the tone he's taking, which is very different than the president, which is, I feel your pain, I hear you, we're working toward it, hang with us, we're gonna fix this for you. Do you know how they plan to employ him in the midterms? And is there a risk to him if he's going out there and making that message and it never gets better, 2028, it comes back to bite him?
Yeah, a couple of things there. I mean, first, like, as I've said over and over again, tell me what the economy looks like in July of next year, and I'll tell you who wins. And so there's a difference. If they're swimming against the tide next year, there's only so much you can do at that point when it's but I actually believe the opposite. I believe all the investment that the president's talking about is going to start coming through the pipeline, not entirely, but just, when you talk about building a plan, investing, like you'll start to hire workers. I mean, I think all of this money that the president's getting people to invest in the country, if even a fraction of it comes to fruition, this will put Republicans in a good place. With the vice president specifically, I was immediately starting to think when they were talking about this trip about the juxtaposition when Kamala Harris was on The View and said, tell me something, what would you do different? And I've said this over and over again, but it's style. And you hit on it, Rachel, which is the vice president's story is very different from the president. The president obviously grew up very wealthy. He was a business guy in New York City, right? The vice president's story, that hillbilly elegy story, he can go out there and just tell it. And that contrasts him, he can say, I know what it's like. I feel it because I've been there. I literally know what it's like to struggle, to wonder where food's coming from, to wonder how rent's getting paid. Like that in itself, just identifying with people in itself is something that he is uniquely qualified to do. And he's very effective at doing it. So I think just having him out there talking about how he can identify with the traits of a working family that's trying to get by, his own personal struggles as with his family, is going to be a huge contrast and a weapon that we can use very effectively.
But my one question, though, is how does Trump feel if Trump is out there kind of to some extent saying, like, look, things are good. They're bad. It's Joe Biden's fault, but things are good. This is great. And Vance is out there saying, no, I feel your pain. We got more.
Like, I
get it. They're not different, but they kind of are.
Well, he tweeted yesterday, Dan, let me read it, not tweeted, it's through social. When will I get credit for having created no inflation, perhaps the greatest economy in the history of the country? Very different message.
Look, I just go back to this. It's not just the story that the vice president has. It's his effectiveness and what he can go out there and guys, he reads Trump fluently. So this isn't a guy that you go, how is he going to do this? He's been a master at doing it for the last year.
Well, we've not had to defend this, but I mean, I hear you
defending it. I think it's like, hey, guys, I know what it's like. That's why the president is working every day to do this. He's gotten a ton of investments. We're going to continue to, that's
what he has said. I hear you, things like we're working on it and like we're kind of give us time. which is a different message than which is Trump, he does winning and dominance, and Vance is putting gray on it. And that, I just wonder how Trump sits there and hears Vance in Pennsylvania on TV saying, I feel your pain. I know we got a little more to go. Give this time to kick. It's just not, Trump doesn't do empathy like that. I'll be curious.
We'll be watching.
I think Democrats are going to say, which one are you with?
Let's take some questions in the last few minutes. We've got Katie behind the scenes. She's been pulling some stuff out here. Okay, so here we go. Do you really think JD Vance is ready for a presidential run in 2028? And is he truly a candidate who can win? Sean, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, Sean, I'll help you out here a little. He absolutely can run in 28, and he absolutely could win. He is a super formidable candidate. Now, if the economy is terrible in 27, then he's going to struggle. He may not even win the nomination at that point then. But assuming things are like either good or so, he is a very formidable candidate.
Yes,
very formidable. Yep.
I agree. I also think you can think about who the Dem candidate is. Is it somebody super left benefits from that? Let's take another one.
Yep.
WRT. What does that stand for? What does that stand for?
With respect to affordability, why doesn't the media ask Democrats on their stance on cheap fossil fuels,
nuclear
versus their fear of climate change and the love of expensive green energy? That's a good one. Look, here's the other thing I'll just say. With the advent of AI, this is going to take massive amounts of energy. And if you don't support, I don't see any other avenue but nuclear being the backbone of whoever chooses to do this. And it better be us in the United States. But the future of AI depends on the ability to have a significant energy supply to make it happen. And I don't think anything but nuclear is capable of doing that.
It's a great question. And I think, go back to Kamala Harris in 2024, when she kind of ran away from being against fracking and energy exploration out in Western Pennsylvania. I think the party knows that the right answer is all of the above. We should be investing in clean energy and fossil fuels because we have it and we want cheap energy, but not an either or. That, I think, was a huge political mistake.
Let's do another one. Trump is planning on holding an RNC convention before the midterms. Will Democrats do the same? And which Democrat organizes that? Dan?
Katie, who asked the question, you forget the original idea, believe it or not, was from the DNC chairman. And then the White House responded and said, yeah, I think we'll do the same thing. Yes, I believe we will. I think the Republicans, Sean, are talking about Las Vegas for their midterm, which I find, that's an interesting location in the age of social media. But yes, we will.
Why? What's in Vegas?
Yes, we will do one. I am sure. I think the question is whether it's kind of made for television in a TV studio or you physically go somewhere. I imagine we'll go somewhere just to try to get a little bang for the buck locally.
Sean, what's the latest on that? When do we think that might happen?
I was going to say, if it's going to happen, it has to happen basically next July, August.
Yeah.
And to Dan's
point,
after
Labor Day. Sean, does it have to happen this summer anymore?
You're right. There is no. Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe that's the answer. You wait and do it like the week after Labor Day, but
first week of October. Why not?
Yeah,
or right before voting starts.
Early vote. I actually wow. There we go.
I'm excited for a trip to Vegas. The last time I went there was my bachelorette party, and my takeaway from it was I cannot keep up with all these people. Like, wow. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so our second newsletter. First newsletter is Rachel's lasagna. The second newsletter is Rachel's bachelorette party in Las Vegas. Stories. Yes. All right,
what happens in Vegas, guys?
Yeah, that's right.
One last point in this. I will say these things. I get that you're not doing a full nominate because you don't have to pass rules and do all the logistics. But putting together a multi-day event is not an easy task. And here's the thing. Again, I always get a kick when people ask about site selection for conventions. Again, going back to what I've said all along, what does everything come back to? Power and money. And the reality is that there's places that you would love to host a convention, but a host committee cannot confirm, commit to raising
hotel rooms, everything.
Yeah. Right. So the one thing that Vegas does offer is that I think immediately you definitely have a logistics on your side because it's easier to get around. You've got a place that's used to holding big conventions. They've got the hotel space, and there's definitely money.
Well, but let me just say, though, those conventions are usually selected 2 to 3 years out. And the bidding cities lock the hotel rooms down, say, okay, we'll give you 95% of the hotel rooms. I wonder right now, like, if you haven't locked that down, I assume these are going to be much more skinny. They're basically going to be made for, you're not going to bring all your delegates in and like,
you don't have no rules. So
and like, but then don't forget too, who speaks, who makes the decisions of who to highlight. It's not easy, especially
who decides? You know who decides. I mean,
well, on your side, it's simple. On our side, are you highlighting Graham Plattner or are you highlighting Janet Mills? That is going to be a real fight within the party of which side,
and when
the mic.
Who gets the prime time slots? Yeah, I mean, because that's the money is, is if you think about like a normal convention, that those primetime slots over those 3 nights they crescendo with the nominee.
Yeah, the nominee,
or is the VP. So like, it's not just who speaks. When do you speak?
Yeah.
Let's do maybe 1 or 2 more.
Sure.
If we have them. Okay, the damage to Letitia James is done. What needs to happen is getting a conviction with someone involved in the Russia collusion hoax. I'll go to Sean for that.
Well, look, I mean, I will say, first of all, thank you for being a super fan. I will tell you that I get it. I mean, this to me on all of these people who colluded to create a fake controversy and then make people go through the legal ringer, there does need to be some accountability. And my concern is the statute of limitations on a lot of this stuff is expiring. So I'm with you. I hope people face consequences. I know the president stripped the 51 so-called intelligence officials with there's my point is, in all of this stuff, there needs to be accountability. And I hope that the DOJ in particular gets there.
And Dan, would Democrats welcome that so they can try to turn it around? And
no, I mean, look, I think
Trump weaponizing the DOJ reversal.
Yeah, I think this goes to the Letitia James conversation.
Yeah.
You want to repulse swing voters, you focus on something 10 years old. I mean, they're just like, what are you doing? You're not focusing on me, the real lives of real people. This is the other end of the spectrum.
Okay, I think, do we have one more or was that it?
Here we go.
What is
one more?
Oh, all right.
Steven. Oh yeah, Dan, what's your morning run routine and workout plan? We should all implement it in the new year.
Well, I will say I actually don't run as early anymore because of the huddle and the need to the way that we're operating as a lean, mean fighting team here of 3 and Katie, sorry, and 4. I am a little more busy in the morning, but dialing it back post marathon, but go out. We live right near Central Park, so I go run there.
I can't do that in the cold. I don't mind going.
Way better than the heat because I can layer up in the cold, but in the heat you can only strip down so much before it just hits you in the face.
I know, but I just can't. The cold, I used to love it. I cannot do this anymore.
And I've started doing more and more Pilates to help with injuries and long-term strength training. So
get your hundreds in.
That's right. There it is. It's right. It.
I didn't even know. Is that a Pilates term?
It's like the first thing you do in Pilates. Is right? The first thing you do?
Well, it's one of the things. Depends on your
well, I always did it first and I used to do Pilates.
Okay. Well,
it's great for the abs. We'll teach you, Sean. At some point, we'll teach you after
the tailgate. Yeah, not before the tailgate.
Yeah.
A couple days after. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks, guys. We will be back Monday at 8:30. So we will see you all then. Thank you for joining. And again, go to the dchuddle.com, sign up, join our mailing list, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Go Navy, beat Army.